December 31st, 2022, about 3 p.m., Montgomery, Alabama, the United States, an airport ground crew on duty was sucked into the aircraft engine died. The aircraft engine of the horror of the suction is really let a person feel fear. The working principle of the aircraft engine is simple, that is, the air is sucked into the combustion chamber and sprayed fuel mixing combustion, resulting in high temperature and high pressure airflow through the high and low pressure turbine from the tail nozzle, and finally produce thrust to promote the aircraft forward. The part responsible for sucking in the air is the turbofan, which can be seen as a large fan with a diameter of more than 2 meters, and it can rotate at up to 10,000 RPM when it is in operation. Taking the world's largest Airbus A380 as an example, the turbofan engine it adopts is the Trent 900 developed by Rollo, whose thrust is about 33 tons, and the data shows that the air intake of this engine is 1,210 to 1,246 kilograms per second. Maybe we cannot see and touch the weight of the air has no concept. 1 cubic meter of air weighs about 1.3 kilograms. Through the calculation, this aviation engine can suck in at least 930 cubic meters of air per second. What kind of concept is this? An area of 300 square meters of air volume contained in a house is about 900 cubic meters, that is to say, it can be in a second in the house of the air to be drained. Such a huge volume of suction is enough to confirm his horrible suction, not to mention sucking a person, at the same time inhaling 5 people is not difficult. At this time there will be proposed in front of the engine to add a shield is not good, in fact, is not feasible. If you add the shield will inevitably affect the engine's air intake. To give a simple example, such as we wear a mask for weight running, breathing is naturally very smooth. Engine so large air intake, if the front of the installation of a cover to hinder a little, not enough air intake will certainly suffocate the engine. In addition, the shield is still a big security risk. The airplane 800 km per hour flight speed, if the cover cannot withstand the pressure breakage, the wreckage fell into the engine, an aviation accident is inevitable. And in 10,000 meters high altitude will not encounter any birds, this altitude in addition to the air nothing, so add the shield is completely unstable factors. Once a person is sucked into an airplane engine, the engine will instantly transform into a large meat grinder. The human body would explode into a mist of blood in a split second and enter the combustion chamber with the air fuel to form a combustible mixture and burn fully, even to the point of forming a deflagration that would leave only a trace of carbon behind. By the time it's ejected from the tail there's almost nothing but air left. I can't see you, but you're everywhere. In 2014, the world record for most walnuts smashed with the head was finally broken again. The original record holder, the Indian boy known as the Iron Head King, was challenged head-on by a mysterious man, but ultimately lost to the 254 walnuts smashed with his head in 1 minute. This mysterious man is the man who once claimed to be the king of martial arts in front of Bruce Lee's fans, Muhammad Rashid. This martial artist from Pakistan aspired to take 100 world records for Pakistan, and so various world records challenged with his head were born. For example, smashing 35 coconuts with his head in 1 minute, breaking 63 steel bars with his head in 1 minute, crushing 103 pencils with his head and so on. All these strange records were created and held by him, and so far Rashid has more than 30 world records. Today, Rashid once again on the Guinness World Record stage, to his 100 world records to take another step. His challenge was to open the largest number of beer bottle caps with his head in 1 minute. In the Guinness Book of Records, some people have challenged to open beer bottle caps with chainsaws and teeth, some people have ridden bicycles and helicopters to open bottle caps, and some Chinese contestants have even used whips to open beer bottle caps, but they have not challenged to use their heads to open beer bottle caps. Today's scene let us see how the Pakistani martial arts king is to create a record. With the head to open the beer bottle cap 77, this is Pakistani player Rashid 1 minute challenge achievement. This is a new Guinness World Record. However, Rashid did not only challenge this record. Immediately after a change of clothes Rashid again back to the field, because he is going to carry out the second world record challenge, 1 minute with the head to break the largest number of cans. The rules of the challenge stipulate that the contestant can only use his head to directly hit the upper or lower end of the can, which makes the challenge more difficult, because the upper and lower ends of the can are the hardest part of the can. The pain of the head hit on it makes people shudder. As expected, before the challenge was half over, the can had already left a blood stain on Rashid's forehead. Sound challenge accompanied by Rashid a roar and the end of the record certifying officers count. Pakistan's Rashid a minute with the head broken cans totaled 58, another new world record was born. Rashid, who took 2 consecutive records on the field, said he would continue to use his head to try to hit some impossible challenges, and continue to launch his own 100 world records. This pile of black paste is more expensive than gold. Eat a little every day is said to prolong life. It is aged 30 years of Shaanxi old vinegar. In the first year, a tank of vinegar can evaporate half of the water. In the third year, the color gradually becomes darker. In the fifth year, the vinegar taste is the strongest. In the eighth year, it starts to evaporate with the acetic acid, and the sour taste is more soft. In the 10th year, the vinegar is oily, and it starts to have a viscous feeling. By the time the 30th year, the vinegar has solidified into a paste, which is the best traditional Chinese medicine at this time. Since ancient times, there is a saying that 1 or 2 old vinegar 1 or 2 gold. The real Shaanxi old vinegar can be drunk directly. The vinegar flavor is soft and not choking. The main ingredient of brewing old vinegar is sorghum. The auxiliary ingredients are barley and peas, and there are 5 kinds of grains, such as grain bran and bran products. Workers first grind and crush the sorghum on a stone mill, then fully moisten it for 18 hours, and then steam it over a large fire in a steamer. At this point, the gradually cooled sorghum just needs a little catalyst to create a miracle of taste, and this catalyst is called the Big Song, which has a red line in the center of the red heart. Big Song is the best. Workers mix peas and barley in the ratio of 30 to 70, add water and mix well and then press it into a rectangular mold. Under the workers' repeated treading, the barley becomes as solid as a brick. Inside the fermentation room, a kind of mold grows naturally as time passes without adding any fermentation agent. When the fermentation time reaches more than 3 months, a red line appears in the center of the dakois, which means that the dakois has fully matured at this time. The cultivated daku is ground into powder and mixed with steamed sorghum. After that, the fermentation of aged vinegar goes through 2 different stages. In liquid fermentation, also called alcohol fermentation, the sorghum mixed well in front is put into the tank with water, which requires workers to keep stirring. In an aerobic environment, the fermentation of alcohol becomes unusually vigorous, and the aroma of the wine becomes stronger. After 18 days of fermentation, the mash at this point is poured over grain bran and bran for mixing, and then tanked for solid-state fermentation, a step also called acetic acid fermentation. Everyday workers need to turn the mixture to provide it with sufficient oxygen, and over time the alcohol is further hydrolyzed to acetic acid. After the fermentation is complete, it also needs to be fried, at which point the vinegar is in the cracks of the grain chaff and hot water needs to be added to extract the vinegar. The size of the switch controls the flow rate of extraction, which is also related to the quality of vinegar. The slower the flow rate, the better the final quality. The last process of aged vinegar is also chen, summer sunshine, winter fishing ice. The purpose is to make the vinegar water reduction, concentrated into a tank of essence, clear as a mirror. Do you know what happens to the body when it drinks a bottle of alcohol? This video will take you through the process of alcohol absorption in the body, and after watching it you may never want to drink again. When you take the first sip of alcohol in an excited environment, it goes down the esophagus into the stomach and does not need to be digested before it passes directly through the gastric mucosa and enters your bloodstream, which then stimulates your brain. At this point the brain's inhibitions are turned off and your self-control begins to diminish. After 10 minutes of drinking, more alcohol begins to enter your bloodstream and spreads throughout your body, accompanied by a gradual increase in your heart rate. After 30 minutes of drinking, your blood vessels will also slowly dilate under the effect of alcohol and it will cause your body to appear hot and sweaty. At the same time, the stomach also secretes a lot of digestive juices stimulated by alcohol, and these piled up digestive juices begin to churn up the esophagus and cause a burning sensation in your stomach. However, the stomach only absorbs 20% of the alcohol and the remaining 80% goes to the intestines. After an hour of drinking, the alcohol that enters your intestines is rapidly absorbed, and at this moment the alcohol level in your body will also peak, and the brain begins to release large amounts of adrenaline and cortisol, which will make you more excited and reckless. At the same time, the dopamine released by the reward center puts you in a kind of fairy-like happiness, but alcohol has silently occupied every corner of your body. They rely on their own fat solubility to break through the cell membrane composed of phospholipids, and wreak havoc in your body. After a while, 10% of the alcohol will be accompanied by respiration and perspiration out of the body, and the remaining 90% will be in the liver to wait for the decomposition. The body relies on the enzyme ethanol dehydrogenase to break down alcohol. However, most people only have a small amount of the enzyme acetaldehyde dehydrogenase, which is not enough to break down the intermediate product acetaldehyde into acetic acid, which results in a large amount of harmful acetaldehyde remaining in the body. At this stage you will soon experience symptoms such as nausea, headache, redness of the face, etc. The worst thing is that the retained acetaldehyde will follow the cell membranes damaged by alcohol to enter the cells, destroying the genes in the nucleus of the cells, causing you to leave a permanent danger, and in serious cases it may lead to cancerous changes. 2 hours after drinking, along with the dilation of blood vessels, the heat in your body will slowly cool down, when your body will feel cold. And your stomach, in order to get rid of alcohol, will continue to secrete gastric acid, resulting in nausea and vomiting, and eventually you successfully reach the purpose of vomiting up and urinating down. Is this the situation you want? Why are Russian weapons easy to copy while American ones are almost impossible to copy? Actually, this is mainly because of 2 aspects. The first is the electronic software. There is no way to copy this. For example, the United States of America's B-2 stealth bomber, the introduction of 30 years, it is reasonable to say that its wing shape, the entire outline by the wind tunnel can still blow out, but why China and Russia have not built this stealth bomber? Because this aircraft does not control the airflow rudder, the entire fuselage is all wing, and to turn you have to rely on controlling the size of the thrust of the two engines, as well as a dozen or so spoilers on both sides of the wing to make the B-2 turn or landing. So the question is, how to control the thrust of this engine? This is achieved using computer technology and specially developed software. Not to mention how difficult it is to develop the control software on this kind of airplane, just like the special effects software, editing software, and all kinds of subtitle software used in making movies, they are all developed by the United States without exception, and even a small office software, many countries are still using the United States. So in terms of the ability to write code and develop software, the United States is indeed the strongest in the world. The B-2 bomber is to rely on the extremely complex flight control system to maintain stable flight, so even if the engine and shape can be built out, there is no flight software still cannot fly. Once a B-2 due to heavy rain, no timely maintenance on the arrangements for takeoff, resulting in its fuselage skin at a sensor seepage failure, so the aircraft just flew in due to airflow control instability and fell down, you can think about how complex its flight control, it is not man can play a role. Then its machining precision is quite high, you can take a close look at this B-2, the whole body is as smooth as a peeled egg. Please don't compare it with a small winged drone, but if you continuously produce a piece of glass the size of a soccer field and a piece of glass a few meters wide, do you think the error will be the same? But the US processing technology will be able to ensure that the precision of the soccer field-sized glass is not worse than the precision of a few meters wide glass, so as to ensure that the stealth of such a large bomber is about the same size as a fist. So for the B-2 bomber, even if the shape can be copied, but the inside of the flight control system and its processing difficulty is still difficult to break through. And most of the Russian weapons are mainly as simple and brutal, in layman's terms, as long as the engine thrust is big enough, even the brick can fly into the sky. So as long as the engine thrust up, even the Tu-160 can be built, which is the Russian weapons relative to the United States is easy to copy. The main reason